Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's 18th of August 2021 market debrief. What we are seeing on the screen here first is the S&P 500 index, and since my last debrief, last video 2 weeks ago on the 4th of August, I've mentioned that the S&P 500 is kind of strong and it's going to be making new highs, and it had consecutively for the past 1 week until yesterday or last night, where the S&P 500 finally had a significant pullback. From here, most likely it is going to have some sort of pullback, a few days of pullback or a few weeks of pullback, and thereafter it might continue to make new highs. Now, if I here put on the 200-day moving average, you can see that the 20-day, 50-day, 200-day moving average are moving in parallel fashion. So at this moment, it is still trending upwards very strongly, and there is still isn't a big sign of a distribution happening. Okay, so at this moment, it's still going strong. Okay, and we just have to be patient with it. For the Dow Jones Industrial Average, is roughly moving in the same fashion as S&P 500 index. Okay, and the Nasdaq is been moving sideways. Okay, probably also because there are a lot of tech companies being affected by the China crackdown, and most of the big tech firms are also so-called trading sideways or resting after moving off tremendously, being led by this, in previous June period, where the big tech companies all started to rally. So at this moment is they are all taking a breather, and then so we shall wait and see, how this one will turn out. Okay, so overall the Federal Reserve is still printing more money, or so-called buying assets, the bonds from open market. Okay, as you can see, is still on upward fashion, trending upwards. Okay, and what I do know is that the so-called tapering will only come like late September. So therefore, they are so-called forecasting a higher interest rate at the end of the year. Okay, so meaning to say they plan to taper, and then as they hold less reserve, there will be less money supply in the market, and therefore the interest rate will rise. Okay, so if that happens, so likely we should be expecting a US market correction somewhere end of the year. So, but in such a very strong movement for the US, right, the correction might come earlier. Okay, so um, we shall see, see how what really transpire or turn out from here. Okay, for our Asia market, this is Hang Seng Index, and previously we've talked about this big drop, and this big drop had kind of like become a new support or new base that had formed. Okay, so why I mentioned that is, if I look at the tracker fund 2800, where it is we closely track the Hang Seng Index. Okay, and what we have here is that during this period you can see that there are tremendous volume right at this day. Okay, when you start to make this new low, so this is a sign, with this tremendous volume, right, this is a sign that accumulation could be starting from here, and doesn't mean this will be the new low, but what I would say that the big boys, funds, institution, they are starting to do accumulation, they are starting to buy in this area. And if it drops lower with no volume, it is a very big sign, that it might turn around from here. So at this moment it is still weak. Okay, mainly with China news, on China government, they have been coming up with a lot of regulation on the big tech firms. Okay, and they are moving in on levying higher tax on internet companies. Okay, so they started with Tencent, Meituan, and then they might be looking at probably a so-called broad-based sector tax, or so-called, some newspaper are calling it as the digital tax. Okay, so we are not too sure how this will turn out. Okay, what we can do is just patiently wait and see how this one will turn out. Okay, so at this moment, you can stay put, or you can start to buy in small, buying every month on some of your favorite big stocks. Okay, so as I've mentioned before, when there are crises, is usually a good time to accumulate, to buy shares. And so at this moment, China, that side is their stock market is having a crisis. Okay, so I would say it is time for accumulation on Hong Kong stocks or China tech companies. Okay, for Shanghai Composite Index, what we can see that this is a very nice run up or a nice rebound. Okay, so I would say most likely it will be forming a base over here in this area, 3350 to 3005. Okay, so we shall see how this one will turn out also. Okay, for Singapore index, I've mentioned that it is trading in a sideways market, sideways fashion, and true enough, it is after 2 weeks is still trading sideways, back at where it started 2 weeks ago. Okay, so these are mainly dealing in the three banks, and of course, recent big price movement is the SGX. From here, I think most likely is still going to be trading sideways for a while more. Alright, and as the China side is unstable and US is having a pullback, or so-called a resting period, so Singapore is most likely to continue trading sideways. Okay, someone had asked about the what I think about the goal. Alright, and what I can see is that this 1700 area is really the accumulation zone. Okay, whenever it hit this price level, there will be huge volume coming in to buy back up. Okay, so if we were to look at the weekly chart, okay, you can see that there are tremendous volume right at this level of about 1700. Okay, so there are all a huge volume when price drops down to this area, and then it started to quickly rebound back up. So last week also the same thing happened. When it drops to 1007, there is a huge volume coming in and pushing the price back up again. Okay, so I would say this 2007 is really the accumulation zone, and it will take some time until a real big crash happen, that money will start to flood into the gold, as a safe haven. Okay, so for this week, what are the stocks we should be looking at? First up, what we have here is the Capital DC REIT, and I've mentioned about this Capital DC REIT many times. Usually when it is at the 250 255 area. Okay, so why is that so? Is because this 250 area, right, 245 250 area are where the huge amount of volume come in before price started to move back up. Okay, so right over here in March happened, in May it happened, right over here in June, so-called July, and then so-called the most recently 13th of August, where they announced so-called private placement for acquisition of data center in China. All right, so in this case, after this announcement, shares traded sideways, and today it has volume going up, rallying back up. So my guess is this could be so-called the accumulation zone. People are picking up on Capital DC rate more on future. So we will have to wait for this to slowly finish its consolidation and started to trade above this 200-day moving average, and thereafter it might start to turn trend. Okay, so this might take some time. Okay, it's more on long term, and it's a so-called pure play data center REIT that we have in Singapore. Okay, city development, I've mentioned about this stock last week. Okay, I've mentioned that last week this stock is right over here, the 4th of August, and thereafter it started to trade down much lower. Okay, and thereafter, after it break a new low, it quickly rebounded back up, and closed much higher. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is already to means to say that this is like the accumulation zone because of this bar and the tremendous high volume that happened there. All right, so this is the zone of accumulation, and I think it might be trading sideways or form a base formation around this area, 660 to 680 area. All right, so you can do take note for those who like city development. Bear in mind that they have a so-called bankruptcy suit against one of their subsidiary, Sincere Property in China. Okay, so that's why the share price has been dropping over the past few months. Okay, as Singapore is looking into easing their restriction on COVID, so-called vaccinated people are starting to be dining out. I've been moving around past few days and been seeing coffee shops, diners. They're packed with diners. People are flooding back in to dine out. Okay, so one thing I would say will be benefiting from all this is they are the retail REITs. Okay, so first up is the Fraser Centrepoint Trust, and why I mention this is because of high volume spike that's happening around this area of 225 to 230. Okay, so currently price is trading about 235, and there is some volume coming in today. This might be trading sideways, accumulating, and people are expecting the so-called the next earnings to be much better as diners starts to flood back in to do shopping and dine in. A lot of retail REITs have a lot of this buying happening. Okay, so this is Fraser Centrepoint. The next so-called retail REIT is the Land Lease REIT. Okay, having a huge volume rally today also after it ex dividend. Okay, so those who have this previously, their dividend is for free, and the price is back up again. Okay, so this is mainly the REITs they have in so-called Milan office REITs and Somerset 313 mall. Okay, and land lease they have, I think, more in the pipeline, like Parkway, Gem. There might be some news that might be coming up, who knows. Same thing for Star Hill Global REIT, another retail REIT dealing in this Ngee City, Wisma Atria, and some properties in Australia. After dividend, it has also been rallying back up after testing this 59 cents, and it starts to rally back up with volume. Okay, so I would say it is still strong, and there is still chance of for it to trend upwards. Okay, and with the easing of this COVID-19 situation, where people are starting to go out and dine out, I would say is a positive sign for all these retail malls. Okay, and I also do know that a lot of office workers are also going to start to work from office. Okay, like 50%. Okay, so that will add into the lunchtime crowd. Okay, so most likely this is what is going to create a demand for all these retail REITs. Okay, over the week, someone asked about NanoFlim. After its result, it has a big so-called sell down that happened. Okay, and it loses like 50% in just a span of 3 days. All right, so there is a huge amount of volume, and a lot of shares traded place, change hand, and today we have a slightly up bar with a significant amount of volume too. All right, so meaning to say, I would say short-term selling pressure has waned, but does not mean that people are scared and started to sell. So if this doesn't really rebound back up, right, most likely traders will start to sell down again. But for this, I would say because of this tremendous amount of volume happening, right, if it continues to have high volumes to spike up and this started to move back up, we could be also looking at this as the short-term low or base formations to happen. Okay, so but at this moment it's still not confirmed yet, so it's only like trader paradise, intraday trader where they trade because the range and volatility is high, they can make a nice intraday trade. Okay, so At this moment, I would say if you want to invest in this, it's best to wait and sit out for this to finish. Let it decide where the bull and bear, which sides really win. Okay, I talked about Alibaba many times. Let's look at the US side. Okay, and what we have is that uh, it has made a new low. Okay, and from its high, it is already retraced down like 45%. Okay, and it is possible to let it continue to go down to 50%, 60%. It's entirely possible. So, but at this moment, we like to see, is it um, are we going to be expecting it to drop to like more than 60%? So to me, the case is unlikely. All right, as we can see, all this big drop, right? There are huge, significant amount of volume coming in. Okay, as you can see, and in terms of fundamental, there's nothing wrong with the company. The company is making money, and every month there are great sales happening, for Alibaba, and a lot of people are also catching on, when especially right now for our Singapore, though it's a small market, but a lot of people are already ordering like furniture bulk buy from Taobao and shipping over to Singapore. Okay, and personally, I'm also looking at renovating my place, my house, as I'm getting a new flat. As I search through the net on a lot of the so-called furniture companies, and I do note that actually a lot of the furnitures are also from Taobao. So meaning you say Taobao are serving a huge amount, not just B2C, but also B2B, where these people, these business people or shops resell it to consumers who do not know how to do it Taobao. So meaning to say in terms of range and reach, they basically have all sorts of items on their website, which you can buy at a cheap price. So I do not know how, unless the government come in and step in and say, you have to close down your business. I don't see in any way why Alibaba will not grow and become bigger in their business. Okay, so to me, I would say it's still an undervalued stock. Okay, we just have to be patient and wait for it to turn around. Okay. Okay, this is Ping An. Okay, someone asked me about what I think about Ping An, and Ping An, after making a new low with you can see at the bottom of this low with a lot of volume coming in like a month ago, and what I can say is that the rebound has been weak and it's been trading sideways. So I would say it is still weak, and there is a higher chance or possibility that it might still continue to trend down. And with the situation with China, lots of investors are keeping a hands-off approach on China companies. Okay, so I would say there is still possibility that Ping An might continue to drift down and make new lows. So we should still wait for it first. Okay, this is Neo, also being requested by someone to take a look at Neo. Neo being like a up and coming EV companies, beside this BYD. And what I can see is that there has been a so-called accumulation happening around the $32 area right over here. So I would say the at this moment Neo has lost investors interest. Okay, you can see previously Neo had a tremendous amount of volume, traded volume. Okay, but as so-called China crackdown on tech companies, right, you can see the volume has already dropped significantly as compared to previously. So I would say due to this lack of investor interest, right, most likely it will continue to trend downwards or drift downwards until you can see such thing happening, a huge volume spike coming in at the low, where you can probably institutions are coming in and accumulating the stock. Okay, so at this moment I would say we can still wait for Neo. Okay, the stock I would like to talk about today is Palantir Technology. All right, and Palantir is listed in the New York Stock Exchange, and what this company does is basically they are a big tech data company or data processing company with AI technology, and they mainly serve big companies, to help them solve their problems, their logistical problems, and whatever issues that they have. It's basically it takes all sorts of data from all around, different sets of data where a lot of software companies could not integrate them together. And what they have is they have a platform for companies to do that, taking different sorts of data and integrating it and giving you a high level decision making process. Okay, so Palantir has been growing tremendously. Okay, if we look at this, their tech so-called revenue coming in quarterly, for the past 1 year, every quarter they have been increasing their revenue significantly, at least like 10% a quarter. Okay, and at this rate, they are already beating analysts so-called consensus target, repeatedly for 3 quarters already. So what I've done is this. Okay, as I've shown in my last video showing Alibaba. So Palantir Tech basically it just IPO in 2020. So you can see here the share growth coming up like more than 200% is mainly because of the IPO, where they uh, issue a lot of new shares for the public. Okay, and they become a public listed company. All right, so therefore this revenue per share has dropped. All right, but the revenue you can see is been growing, and the trailing 12 months for 2021, you can see that the revenue per share had already increased by 12%. Okay, and only 2 quarters had passed. There's another 2 more quarters to go. Okay, and you can see some of the thing, the book value is also growing. Okay, and it's starting to be positive free cash flow. Okay, so that is a very significant thing. So they are starting to have free cash coming in. And what do they do with the free cash? I believe you saw the so-called headline news just now. Palantir Tech bought 50 million in gold bars in August. Okay, so if you remember the gold chart in August, there is a gold price spike down. So Palantir could be, they are the one that had bought a lot of gold at low prices. Okay, and so overall I would say, if you look at this in terms of their revenue growth, right, 10% per quarter. Okay, if you average 10% per quarter, and they are looking at 2025 to be a $1 trillion revenue company. Okay, and if they are growing at 10% per quarter, right, they should be looking at about $2 trillion revenue coming in 2025. Okay, so that is a very, sorry, $2 trillion per quarter. Okay, $2 trillion. If you do a so-called um, the financial calculator on this, if they are from here 375 million, right, if they were to grow at a 10% per quarter over the next 18 quarters, which will be at 2025, they should be earning about $2 trillion in revenue. Okay, so if you were to follow this trajectory, $2 trillion per quarter, which means it'll be $8 trillion company, and with its free cash flow growing like that, this is going to be a very big company. And with the current share price here at the low side, about $24, and compared to its previous high of 44, I would say this Palantir Tech should be seeing a start of a long-term uptrend movement in its price movement. Okay, so personally, I'm invested, with an average price roughly around here, 22 something, coming to 23. Okay, and this huge jump up is because of its recent second quarter results, which basically they beat the analysts' estimates. okay, and a lot of institution buyers had come into this, okay. If you can look at some of the website, I think fund manager or something, there are a lot of websites that track big names. So one of those big names are Cathy Wood, with ARK Invest, and all their funds I have already bought into Palantir Tech after the results has been released. And they ARK Invest have been buying almost every single day after the release, so every single day from 12 August to today or last night, okay. So ARK Invest have been buying every single day, okay. So a lot of institutions are coming in, buying into this, after they see the results of this. And on top of that, they previously they only deal with government contracts, doing 60+%, mainly government contracts. In terms of government contracts, they're already expanding to France, UK, Japan. They may be expanding to other countries. And on top of that, they are also starting to expand into lower tier business startup. Meaning to say business startup that start from day zero. They started to use Foundry as their platform. So they are trying to get into very sticky situation with their customers. And why I've also heard rumors that they might also be looking at um, B2C, which means to say mass distribution. That's where they will be scaling up, because they already found some ways in which they do not need to employ engineers to customers, to help them customize the software to suit their business. Okay, so I will say that was a very very big plus. And I would say in terms of future growth, this might be a very big growth company, small but growing. Okay, instead of looking at this, right, 24, there are chances that it can go up to 40, and then 100, and then 200. As compared to Amazon, for it to go 10 times, I don't think there is a very big possibility in the next 5 years. Okay, so that's why I look into such companies. Okay, so that's all I have for today. If any question, you can just message me and let me know. Thank you, everyone.